Sir Henry, thank you, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I love my family but hate my life. I need help. I'm scared, now it hurts. These are the words sent in an email to the Mental Health Services by David Jonathan Dukes, who served in Northern Ireland, Bosnia, Iraq twice, and Afghanistan. David Dukes was incredibly brave, as his wife Jo, who has given me permission to share his heart-wrenching story, has also said. Despite what he did for his country, in his time of need, Dave was let down. Dave was let down in 1997 when he was diagnosed with PTSD, but still deployed to a war zone. He was let down in 2012 when he returned from Afghanistan and was not properly diagnosed with a personality disorder. He was let down in 2018 when his priority need was not properly recorded and he was forced to wait weeks to see a doctor. I will give way.
I'm horrified to hear that David was deployed if he'd been diagnosed with PTSD. I'm really surprised that would have happened. No commanding officer would have sanctioned that, I wouldn't have thought. But if the honourable gentleman says that happened, so it did. But they should actually have not allowed him to deploy, because someone with PTSD can be a really big problem for his friends who he has to protect, as well as him.
Thank the honourable member for his intervention, and if I carry on my story, I'll explain a bit more about this personal case. He was let down in 2018 when his priority need was not properly recorded, and he forced to wait weeks to see a doctor. He was let down by the crisis team who turned him away because he was not in their records. And he was let down when a 2-hour standoff with 8 police officers and 2 negotiators didn't result in his sectioning for his own safety. And he was let down, Mr. Chairman, by the home treatment team when they didn't respond to 26 phone calls made by his loving wife and refused to come out to support him. On the 9th of October 2018, David Jonathan Dukes, a veteran of 5 conflicts and a hero by anyone's standards, took his own life. This is truly harrowing tale is indicative of many other instances of veterans being passed around by departments without any kind of tailored approach to their mental health services. And that is why we are here today. In the UK, there are around 5 million members of the armed forces community, and we see around 15,000 men and women leave service each year. It is important to stress that the majority of these individuals do not experience a decline in mental health upon their transition to civilian life. But we are here today to talk about those who do. Last year, 58 veterans took their own lives. This is a shocking statistic, but most importantly, it's a shocking loss of life. I will give way.
I thank the honourable member for giving way and congratulate him on securing such an important debate. While the official figures say that there were 58 veteran suicides last year, actually numbers from within the third sector and supportive organisations suggest that there was closer to 100, if not more. Isn't one of the problems on this issue is that we don't actually have the data in order to assess the scale of the problem?
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and you're absolutely right, and that's something that I will be coming on to later in my speech. This is an issue, I believe, that transcends party politics. And for me, a debate today is about cross-party cooperation. I will give way.
I'd like to thank the honourable member and also thank the honourable member for bringing this important debate. And you can see here how it touches people's hearts. You made the point about 58 veterans taking their own lives. Does my honourable friend agree with me that mental health of our brave veterans should be a top priority for government, and we need to see more working together of the Ministry of Defence with the NHS collectively to ensure that veterans get all the support that they need to treat those who risk so much to protect us and our country?
Honourable member for her intervention, and you're absolutely right. I think there's more the NHS can do and charities across our country, and I will be saying more about that later on. I won't give way yet, but I will do later. I therefore look forward to hearing views from colleagues across the House today and working with them to improve the care given to the brave men and women who day in, day out put their uniforms on to keep us safe. And I welcome today's announcement in Portsmouth of £700,000 investment in veteran mental health in my own constituency, following a long-running campaign by the Portsmouth News and local campaigners. A really good example of partnership working making a difference. But there is much more we need to do. No other job exerts the same control over your life. No other job asks you to go in the line of fire. And I believe we need to see an approach to care for veterans that reflects these facts. I will.
Thank you for giving way. This morning I received a very heartfelt and upsetting email from two women married to two former British Army infantrymen. Both men have been admitted to psychiatric wards in the last 6 months. Both men have attempted suicide or caused serious risk to their health. The women described the shortfall in the health resources and the lack of specialist expertise to deal with combat trauma as catastrophic. And they say that they're fighting with all their might to keep their husbands alive and the future happiness and life prospects of their families, especially their children. Does my honourable friend agree with me that as well as supporting our brave veterans, we need to do everything that we can to support their brave families?
Thank you, honourable friend, for that intervention. And you're absolutely right. We shouldn't have to be fighting for people to get the support that they need. It's absolutely imperative that they are given their support in the hour of need. I believe we need to see an approach to care for veterans that reflects a number of facts. Exceptional grassroots organisations such as Forgotten Veterans and All Call Signs, who are here in force today, have said that we need tailored, bespoke mental health care that is in line with the experiences the brave men and women like Dave have put themselves in harm's way for our benefit. And this is mirrored by advice given by organisations such as Combat Stress, who believe I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend and congratulate him on securing this important debate on veteran suicide, because in the last decade, the number of new referrals to the excellent organisations Combat Stress, which he's just referred to, has doubled, with their helpline receiving more than 12,000 calls just last year. I know my honourable friend will be more than aware that it is estimated that one ex-serviceman person actually commits suicide every 7 days. But does he not agree with me that it's absolutely ridiculous that the government currently refuses to collect any data on this, so that we cannot actually identify the full scale of this widespread problem?
I thank you for that intervention. You're absolutely right. It is about data, so that we understand the extent of the issue to then do something about it.
On that same point, could I
will, yes.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. I've been recently approached by two veterans who live fairly close to the barracks in Preston, in my constituency. And they're very concerned about this issue. And Dr. Walter Busuttil, who's the consultant psychiatrist and medical director at the charity Combat Stress, said, in the UK, coroners are reluctant to call something a suicide unless it is obvious. They often go with a narrative verdict. Other countries record more accurate suicide studies. Isn't it the fact that there are many suicides in the army and in other forces that are not recorded because of that that narrative that Dr. Busuttil refers to?
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention. I think you're absolutely right. There is an issue around stigma, I think, on this issue, and we can learn a lot from our allies. I think that's absolutely crucial. So the tailored care is exemplified by a survey commissioned by Help the Heroes that found that nearly 30% of veterans are put off from visiting mental health services on the grounds that they believe civilian services will not understand their needs. And also hindering care given to veterans are serious funding issues. 0.007%. That is the percentage of the £150 billion NHS budget that is allocated to veteran-specific funding. I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and I'm delighted that he is so articulately put forwarding the findings of the Defence Select Committee's report onto mental health services and the needs that we have. I'm very interested in the fact that only £10 million of the NHS budget was spent last year on these issues. But one of the biggest challenges that Help for Heroes have identified is that the MOD only has a responsibility to look after veterans for 12 months after they have left the service, but veterans are only coming forward with these challenges 5 years later. So does my honourable friend agree with me that actually the MOD's responsibility of care for veterans should continue for 5 years after they've left the service?
Honourable friend, for that intervention. I think you're absolutely right, and I thank the member for her valuable contributions to the Defence Committee that's raised a number of these issues. That figure that I previously described, that is less than it costs to buy 2 Challenger tanks. That's what we're dealing with today. So I'd like to ask the Minister sitting opposite me, how can we expect to provide care for veterans like Dave when there is such an insulting small amount of money on the table? But it's not just about funding that is damaging the development in this area, where we are lagging behind in so many other ways. Canada, I'm going to carry on. Canada, New Zealand, America, all of whom are our allies and all of whom have similarly structured militaries and political systems. But one thing we can do is one thing we do not share with our allies is the fact that their coroners record their veteran suicide. How can we begin this problem if we do not know the scale of the true problem? Currently, only 1 out of 98 coroners across England and Wales record the detail that decreased in suicide cases of veteran, meaning that the scale of the problem is unknown. And since my election, I've been working with experts in the field like All Call Signs and Combat Stress, who've been calling for the recording of veteran suicide, hosting a summit in my constituency on this matter late last year. And despite these cries from those that know best, the government has repeatedly refused these requests. The importance of this cannot be underestimated. Current estimates project that it could be as high as 1 in 6 ex-service people every service days, but without detailed recordings, the problem is likely to be far worse. As General Sir David Richards, former head of the Armed Forces, and Colonel Richard Kemp, former commander in Afghanistan, have both called for the coroners to start logging veteran suicide. This is absolutely right. And as the Minister for Health herself has said, the government could do better on tracking suicide rates amongst veterans. Grassroots expert organisations have been highlighting the importance of this since their inception. And as we've heard earlier, the Defence Select Committee has made it one of their key recommendations. So I'd like to ask the Minister today, when will the government listen to the voices of those that know best? And when will he ensure coroners begin to record this data? The disorganised, disjointed, disorderly approach to determining who is responsible for treating veterans, highlighted by Dave's case, is an extension of the government's own ambiguity and confusion. When I tabled this Westminster Hall debate, this was exposed. Within 24 hours, 2 departments had called me to express why they would be answering my questions, followed by an email that stated, "I believe there has been some confusion from our side, and it's confirmed that the MOD will be responding to this debate." With an issue of this magnitude, the government should at least know who is responsible. We can start making a change now, Mr. Chairman. This is not something that we can afford to take over. And whilst I know the government has initiated an inquiry into veterans' mental health, we need to see changes at the coalface happening now. We cannot afford to lose more of our service people. I'm committed to my party's policy of a social contract for veterans. This incorporates a rounded approach to care that includes support for mental health, housing, and retaining staff. This would begin with officially logging the numbers of veterans that take their own lives and would see veterans given priority when it comes to mental health services. I started my speech today by telling Dave's story, and I'd like to finish by quoting someone who this issue could not be closer to, Dave's wife, Jo Jukes. And she said, if coroners began recording veterans' death, the MOD would be forced to accept there was a problem and have to do something about it. It is a major failing. We need a far more joined-up approach to veterans' mental health and care. It is clear that the government doesn't know how big this problem is because it doesn't have the data. Some have said it's hiding behind its ignorance. I hope the Minister will take on board the comments that we hear today, and I look forward to today's debate. Thank you.